Yo, 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 yo. Hey, guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. It's Monday, beginning of another week, and we have a great metric Mondays for you today. Is your case acceptance low? Are you struggling with this? Well, that's often a trust problem. It's not just about price. It's about trust. And I have my amazing co-host today on the podcast. Her name is Miranda Beason, and she walks us through a framework where you can improve your case acceptance and enhance the trust with your patients. So please listen up. Hope you guys enjoy this. We'll see you soon. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show podcast. It's the beginning of another week, which means it's Monday for most of you that are listening. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you had a great weekend. And every Monday, we do something called Metric Mondays, a little bite-sized piece of information around a metric or some numbers or better understanding around numbers to help you improve your practice in your life. And I have my amazing co-host back again today. Her name is Miranda Beason. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, you don't have a choice because I can't do this alone. I need you here. I don't, you're going to see she's the brains. I'm just the entertainment, maybe. So, and we're going to be talking about an interesting one today. And the title for today is Low Case Acceptance is Often a Trust Problem. Totally agree. But let's start here. What does that even mean?
Well, low case acceptance is rarely about price alone. I know you and I love to use the phrase that a former team member gave me of without value, there's only price. And that is true. If we're not creating a trusting relationship where we're sharing and communicating value and we're tying in the outcomes, not just the treatment, but the outcomes to how they're going to benefit the patient, then we're not going to have the needle move on these KPIs, on these key performance indicators. So when we look at things like patient acceptance percentage and dollar amount acceptance percentage around treatment presentation, they don't tell the whole story. You might look at that and think, okay, we're doing okay. We're at 75%. But if trust and value creation was at the base of how you present treatment, you might skyrocket up into the 80s and 90s with your diagnostic percentage, and especially that dollar amount acceptance percentage. Because when patients trust you and your diagnosis and they understand the value, they're going to feel so much more confident moving forward. And it's not going to be about the price. It's going to be, I have to figure out a way to make this happen because I need it, I want it, whatever it may be. We find that way to create that value and for them to trust us as providers.
Yeah, it's so, I love the title of this so much for so many different reasons. And you guys have heard us say, trust is the currency of your future. It just is. And I think trust is going to plummet. And this is your opportunity. There aren't a lot of businesses out there that you just say, I totally trust these people. And so as a dentist, if you can lean into this, this is going to change your life. Remember, you're going to compete on value, which is going to be the trust side of things, or you're going to compete on price and speed. You just, the cool thing about dentistry is you get to choose. You just get to choose. And the hardest thing is when you choose something you don't want. When you go to work, you're like, I'm doing this whole price speed thing and I don't want to do that. So we don't want you to do that. So let's start with what you shouldn't do. And what does it look like when a practice gets this concept wrong?
When we're not building trust, when we're not building value, often what's going to happen is you have a lot of patients walking out the door saying, let me think about it. You present that treatment plan and they do not schedule. They need to go home and they need to talk to somebody. They need to check their calendar. They just want to go home and think about it. They thank you for the information and they walk out the door. Oftentimes, our team chalks that up to cost, and that's not usually the case. Large treatment plans are going to sit in your unscheduled reports. right? If we're not getting this right, people aren't going to say yes. And that list just gets longer and longer and longer of our unscheduled reports. Or a patient comes back the next time, they don't even remember that you recommended treatment the last time that they were there. There can also be inconsistencies between providers. So you might have one provider that's acceptance rate is really great and another provider that's on the lower end. And the likelihood is one is doing a really good job of expressing outcome and value and building trust and the other isn't. You might see that small cases are moving forward, but not those larger cases. Or we're scheduling one thing, but not many things. And that's why it's really important to look at the difference between that patient acceptance and dollar amount acceptance. So let me explain that just briefly. We've done this on a former Metric Monday, but patient acceptance percentage is when you've recommended treatment, something new, restorative elective treatment, and the patient says yes to something that day and schedules. So you may have recommended 4 crowns for that patient at $2,000 a piece, and they've at least scheduled one of them. So you're at 100% acceptance. You had one patient scheduled recommended treatment, that one patient scheduled something, and so you are at 100% patient acceptance percentage. The other side of it that tells a much deeper story around trust and value is the dollar amount accepted. Because if that patient scheduled just one of those crowns at $2,000, but it was an $8,000 treatment plan, that's a 25% dollar amount acceptance percentage. And so it's really important to look at both of those numbers to be able to tell the story, because when you're getting it wrong, and I'll use some air quotes, you're going to have small cases moving forward, which is great. So you'll see that patient acceptance number, even if small cases move forward, go up. But those comprehensive plans are going to sit still. Those quadrant plans are going to sit still because the high dollar treatment is going to be phased out indefinitely because we haven't built the value, and they're seeing that dollar amount and they're just signing up for the smallest thing, the easiest thing. So if patients don't trust you or perceive value in what you're recommending, they are not going to invest. And it doesn't matter what insurance is going to cover, what financing options you have. They need to have that value and that trust in the recommendation.
Yeah, totally. Can I add one too? When people get it wrong? Yeah, dentists that get it wrong are tracking it themselves. And so it's often great to have a great chairside assistant who's a straight shooter and go, listen, I'm going to keep track of what you present every day and how much is accepted, and at what level. Number one, you can't do this as a dentist. Number two, you find the right chairside assistant. They're going to challenge you to be better, because you and I hear this all the time. Oh, my case acceptance is 100%. No, it's not. Well, then if it's 100%,
what's that dollar amount acceptance? Right, what I'd want to ask you.
Yeah, so I think it's important that somebody keeps you honest and keeps you accountable and does good accounting so that you can get better at all of this. And it's really not about the money. It's just about having a system to be able to do that. So I love what you shared.
Well, Kirk, you made a great point of it's got to be the right person. Right. So if it's your office manager, your admin team member, if it's your dental assistant, it's just got to be somebody who is competitive, who has that drive to see the data, know, and want to make change. But you and your chairside assistant, you bring up a really good point, which I wasn't going to talk about originally, and I just will for a moment. Chairside assistants have such a huge impact on the patient experience. And I bow down. I say that every time I'm in a room full of dental assistants, I bow down. I'm the worst dental assistant ever. I always got kicked out of the room when I tried to help assisting. It is a very unique skill set from a communication standpoint and a technical standpoint. And when you have the right dynamic with a really solid chairside assistant who's helping to build that value through co-discovery and through that co-diagnosis process with you, and then they're eager to see the patient be able to achieve that outcome and they're tracking that data with you, it's definitely going to be a win-win.
Yeah, well, let me correct you on one thing. You would be the second worst dental assistant that has ever. I would be hands down number one. So
I don't know. You've never seen me do it.
we should ask Andy. Say, hey, we had the debate. Now we're gonna actually see who
contest for the worst
dental assistant. So I have a special place in my heart for great dental assistants
me as well.
Everywhere around the world. So So obviously we're talking about what it looks like when you get it wrong. So let's go to the other side of the fence. What does it look like when you get this right?
When you get it right, a high percentage of the diagnosed treatment that you're presenting is going to be scheduled before the patient leaves. The patient will be asking questions. They'll be curious.
Yes.
They're going to want more information. The questions that they ask will be more curious and less defensive. So they'll be more open. You'll basically just feel that open nature of your patient really wanting, like, even if they don't know if they can afford it or if it's going to fit into their schedule or into their budget, they're still curious. And you'll start to pick up on some of that change talk that they're sharing. Your comprehensive treatment plans are going to have a strong acceptance rate. Your patients are going to start prioritizing recommended care because they start to understand for themselves the long-term impact. And they will build trust from you when you start to lean into these elements. I've mentioned it earlier, co-discovery and co-diagnosis. If these aren't terms you're familiar with, we have a great tool around co-discovery and co-diagnosis to help you understand it. But the whole element around those terms is that you're doing this with your patient. You're discovering health or the lack thereof with your patient. They're alongside you for the journey. Same thing with the diagnosis. You're talking to them around the outcome that they want to achieve. And then here's the ways in which we can achieve that, what works best for you. And you're working together with the patient so that you can build that trust. When we project what we think someone should do or someone needs to do, it's not received with the same level of acceptance as when we're open and asking the patient to participate in finding those solutions with us. There's going to be this olive branch there that now they start to trust and lean in a little bit more. I often share the story of when I go to get my car worked on and they come out and they tell you, you also need your timing belt changed and your rotors are getting thin. And I always joke because I don't actually know what those things are fully, but that's okay. But I don't believe them at all. But as soon as they can bring me into the conversation and they can carry something out and say, here's what we're looking at. Here's what it should look like. Here's what yours looks like. Does this concern you at all? Of course it does. I want to be able to stop my car, precious cargo.
Yep.
So when you can bring the patient into the conversation, and we'll talk a little bit about ways to do this through photography and things of that nature, they're going to have a higher level of trust and a higher level of commitment. And you're going to see those financial conversations are clear and confident, and the patients start to move forward because they trust you, they trust the clinical recommendation, and they trust that you have their best interest in place when helping them navigate the financial barriers as well.
Yeah, so well said. Patients buy you. They don't buy the dentistry. They buy you and your clarity around that. We often say behind the scenes, when you confuse, you lose. So this is an awesome, awesome point. If you get this right, it changes the game for you. So good. Now, with every one of these podcasts that we do on a Monday, if you're a dentist and you're driving to the office or whatever, and you're like, well, my case acceptance, isn't that great? Don't worry, we won't leave you there. We're going to give you something to do today to improve that. So where do we start, Miranda?
So start by asking your team, are we presenting dentistry? Are we presenting treatment? Or are we building trust with our patients? And there is a difference in the way that if we're presenting a crown versus we're presenting a full coverage restoration that's going to keep you from having that chewing pain that you've been experiencing and reduce the risk of you actually breaking that tooth one day, Mrs. Jones, and losing it. When we're providing the outcome as the solution and not the product or the treatment, we're going to start to have our patients feel a higher level of trust. It's not just about presenting the dentistry. It's what does that dentistry do? What value does it bring to the patient's life? That's what they're going to sign up for. And that's where the value is really going to come from. And so I go back to those terms, co-discovery and co-diagnosis. Those are really key. Number one, you can go to the BPA and download the tool, but you can also Google it. I mean, that's yeah. You can Google anything these days. Ask ChatGPT, what's co-discovery and co-diagnosis? The key to those is that you're aligning with the patient. And it's less of this teacher-student mentality. I'm the authority. You need to listen to me. And it's more, hey, I'm just here to serve you. I'm here to help you. Thank you so much for choosing me in that process. I want to look at this with you to make sure I understand what you want and be able to provide you with the solutions to get there. Using visuals is incredibly important. Every single patient should have an intraoral photo at least in their chart, and scans and extraoral photos can do a great service as well, because when they can see what we're looking at, they're able to be a part of that conversation. And even radiographs, when we use things like AI, like Pearl imaging, or even if we don't have that just yet, and we just need to at least orient the patient first. What we hear a lot of times is practitioners saying, you see here this and you see here that, and the patient just nods along, but they have no idea what they're looking at. So we do have to take the time sometimes and just slow down and help them be a part of that discovery process. And before you know it, they're asking for solutions, and we're not having to fight quite so hard to provide those to them. And then the other element is say this, not that, the way we communicate, just aligning language as a team around the really key aspects of what it is that we struggle with. If you can identify, until we hit this mark, people usually say yes. Well, what are those sticking points that we struggle with? Maybe it's occlusal guards. People don't want to pay $800 for an occlusal guard. Well, let's use some aligned language to help patients understand the value and the outcome that they're getting long-term, and not just a bite guard or a night guard that they know they can buy over the counter. What is this outcome of the type that we're providing that's going to give them a higher level of value? So aligning our language as a team.
So well said, Miranda. And if you're still struggling with this, and Miranda said it so well, I don't know that I can add to that. Like, share this podcast with your team and say, let's have a conversation about it. I know sometimes it's hard to have a meeting or bring some of this stuff up, but it's easy to share a podcast and go, okay, listen, I just listened to a great podcast this morning, if you thought that was true, and say, let's have a conversation about it. That's step number one. Step number two, Miranda mentioned the Say This, Not That resource. And even if you downloaded it like a year ago, it is amazing. What you guys don't know is she's the director of education, and she recently improved it and updated it. And I got a chance to look at it at our last To the Top Study Club. I'm like, this is incredible. And so I think you would agree, if you're listening, verbal skills matter. Like, don't try to figure this stuff out. This is all we do. Verbal skills will change the culture of your practice and change your patients' lives. We are working continuously to improve the resources we have back here to help support independent practice. So if you haven't joined the BPA, this is your opportunity. Go back to the Best Practices Association and start the journey there. You can actually download the Say This, Not That resource. And I promise you're going to download it and go, this is great stuff. You don't have the time to train your team. You don't. Let us do that. And that's where these resources can support you. We want you to have a great practice and a great life. Start the journey today. So, Miranda, that was amazing.
Thanks so much for having me back, Kirk.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you'll be back again and again and again. So awesome. We'll stick around while we say goodbye to everybody else. But thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show podcast. You guys keep showing up. We're going to keep bringing it with over 116,000 unique listeners. I don't know how that's working, but we're super grateful. So stay tuned. We're going to keep bringing you great information. Join us back there in the BPA. Make sure you check out Exchange, which is the annual meeting we have with our Smile Source community. It's the ultimate way to support private independent practice. I promise you, you will love it. So until we see you guys next time, or you hear from us next time, keep watching or keep listening to the Best Practices Show. Hope you guys enjoy your Monday.